So in this brief video, I'm going to talk about Russian demographics and the crisis that exists today. So you know that they're losing 1,000 or so men off the battlefield here. Just today it was 1,210 that's killed and wounded. So that's not 1,000 dead, but a good chunk of that is going to be dead. Right. And then we know that that's happening day over day to the tune that there are 600,000 plus men off the battlefield. And let's say that half of that or so is dead. Now, let's just, for rough cuts, we have a problem here with a couple 100,000 dead. And then we also have this. Every single day, the Russian population falls by 1,500 people. And that isn't counting their war casualties. It's just their death rate plus emigration plus birth rate plus immigration. So there's a net minus 1,500 per day. That's 550,000 people per year. And that's not including the million or so that fled in the initial mobilization. And so they're attriting people essentially from the population by taking them and putting them into the military. There's also natural death causes. And so it leads us to a problem with the pyramid. Okay. Russia is unaware of that, and they're trying to figure out how do they fix what's broken. So there are a couple ways that they're trying to deal with they need more people in the military. They have to put 30,000 into the military as it is, and they're going to put another 180,000 into the military on top of that. And so they're fixing it with things like recruiting from foreign countries. Now, this is a video about internationals from Nepal being drawn into the Russian military. Young men from Nepal are being lured to fight in Russia. Families from a remote village in Nepal traveled 18 hours to the country's capital, Kathmandu, to learn of her son's fate. The video was a Parikh speaking to me from prison. Parikh is one of a handful of Nepalese prisoners captured after fighting on the front lines for Russia. He said he was lured there after watching social media videos like this one, talking about salary is equivalent of 2,800 Canadian a month. Some say it's worth traveling to Russia so that they can send the money back home to their family. In Nepal, 1 in 5 people live in poverty. Online, some videos show soldiers looking relaxed and well taken care of. A far different reality from what many have experienced. Dozens of Nepalese men have been killed in the front lines. Some videos have circulated showing men asking for help to leave. Nepal has now banned its men from traveling to Russia on work permits. Officials say 170 have returned home after their military contracts expired. Okay, so that's one way that Russia's trying to backfill. Another way, this just emerged yesterday. Leak from the Russian Defense Ministry, soldiers from North Korea sent to invade Ukraine alongside Russians are being issued identity cards to pass them off as Buryats. Buryatia is a republic in occupied Russia in eastern Siberia where the indigenous people have Asian appearance. So that's another way to backfill. But this is yet another way to backfill. I saw this and I thought, wow, they're really getting desperate.
Putin signed a law authorizing the sending of defendants to war. Criminal cases will be suspended at the stage of court proceedings if the suspect agrees to sign a contract.
So if you didn't catch that, defendants can be sent off the war. Now, that doesn't mean they have to involuntarily go. They have to voluntarily sign a contract. Now, they may put pressure on them to sign the voluntary contract, but nonetheless, that's what they can do. It can interrupt the legal process where defendants won't have to worry about their charges if they go off to war.
Contract can also be signed at the appeal stage. That is, now it will be possible to send them to the front at any stage of criminal prosecution.
The interlocutors of important stories estimate that about 100 defendants may be taken to the war from each pre-trial detention center. There are 210 detention facilities in Russia, which means that about 20,000 people could be sent to war. In total, 106,000 people were in Russian pre-trial detention centers at the beginning of 2024, according to the Federal Penitentiary Service. This number includes not only defendants but also persons under investigation, accused and others. From the Telegram channel.
Okay, so what's happening here is instead of going to the prisons themselves and asking who wants to volunteer to go to the front to get out of prison, you just take people who are being accused of a crime as a defendant. If you want to get out of this, you can go to war instead. And there's a pretty large pool of people that are like that. Now, this creates all kinds of incentives for bad behavior. For example, how many of these people voluntarily signed as opposed to being coerced into voluntarily signing? Or how many people will be accused of crimes in order to get them into this kind of condition so that they voluntarily sign, and this is a better deal than going through the legal process. There are all kinds of ways, but Russia really has to do something. And now the demographic crisis writ large is creating a mobilization crisis because they have to have more men in the military, and Putin doesn't want to mobilize like he tried in 2022 or 2023, which caused 1 million people to flee. So that's where they are, and that's how they're trying to fix it, by recruiting internationally and recruiting people who are otherwise going to prison. It's a fascinating thing to watch. Tell me what you thought about this in the comments below. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.